On the 16th of July 2026, Marco Rubio opened a State Department meeting on what his office called the resurgence of political terrorism. More than 60 countries were represented, and the language was not subtle. Rubio described far-left violence as a threat to civilization itself. He cited historical data, invoked recent political killings, and framed the problem as a revolt against the West. Now, we do not have to accept every political conclusion in that speech to notice something important. The interesting question is not merely whether Rubio is right about today's security priorities. The deeper question is older. Why do some political dreams begin by promising justice and end by treating civilization itself as the enemy? Every civilization is full of imperfections. It has inequality, it has hypocrisy, it rewards some talents more than others. It makes promises it does not always keep. A serious reformer looks at those failures and asks how the house can be repaired. But a different temperament looks at the same failures and reaches for a match. It says, if the house contains injustice, the house itself must be evil. If the rules do not give me victory, the rules must be abolished. If hierarchy still exists, then every standard must be a weapon of oppression. That is the moment when criticism stops being reform and becomes revenge. Civilization is not a slogan. It is a long chain of boring miracles. Courts that mostly work, contracts people mostly honor, schools that transmit knowledge before they transmit resentment, markets where strangers can cooperate without loving each other, families, habits, libraries, laboratories, unwritten manners. None of this feels dramatic while it is functioning. That is why it is so easy to despise. A bridge takes years to design and months to build, but one determined fool can damage it in an afternoon. A university takes generations to earn trust, but a fashion and moral certainty can make it embarrassed by its own standards. Destruction has an unfair advantage. It looks decisive. Construction looks slow because it is carrying reality on its back. One strand of this temptation runs through Rousseau. Rousseau did not simply say, civilization is bad, as if he were writing a slogan for a campus poster. His thought was more serious than that. But he gave modern politics a powerful image. Natural man before society, less artificial, less corrupted, less trapped by comparison. That image can be philosophically useful. It reminds us that institutions can deform the soul, but it also contains a danger. If you begin to believe that man was pure before society touched him, then every limit, every inherited rule, every demand for discipline can start to look like violence. And then the cure becomes strangely simple. Break the forms, and innocence will return. History has a dry sense of humor about that promise. The source video has a blunt image for this. If I cannot play, nobody gets to play. In a calmer English version, we might say, if I cannot win on the field, I will call the field evil. Civilization creates gates. Not all of them are fair. Some should be opened. Some should be rebuilt. But the existence of a gate is not, by itself, oppression. A piano has a gate called practice. Mathematics has a gate called proof. Law has a gate called procedure. Science has a gate called evidence. The resentful mind performs a small magic trick. It turns the pain of not passing through the gate into a moral verdict against the gate itself. This is where the argument becomes more than a partisan complaint. A political movement becomes dangerous when it recognizes no authority above its own purity. Not God, not natural law, not tradition, not constitutional procedure, not even the stubborn facts of human nature. When nothing stands above the movement, everything outside the movement becomes raw material. Property can be seized in the name of justice. Speech can be controlled in the name of safety. Education can be remade in the name of liberation. Violence can be excused as the birth pain of a better world. That does not mean every person on the left wants violence. That would be lazy and false. The point is narrower and more useful. Utopian politics becomes dangerous when it treats limits as crimes and reality as an enemy to be punished. The civilized answer is not to pretend the house has no cracks. It does. Some rooms are badly built. Some doors have been locked for too long. Reform is necessary because civilization is imperfect. But civilization is also the only place where reform can mean anything. Destroy the courts, and justice becomes force. Destroy standards, and equality becomes envy with a microphone. Destroy memory, and liberation becomes whatever the loudest faction says this week. That is the gravity of intellectual history. The old arguments keep pulling us back. Rousseau asks whether civilization corrupts us. The liberal tradition asks how civilization can discipline us without crushing us. And every generation has to answer the same question. Do we repair the house, or do we burn it down and call the fire progress?